97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DiCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you locally by Dr. Lyle M. Back. For everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery, go to ilovelylback.com or call 856-MAKEOVER for Dr. Lyle M. Back, proud sponsor of Football at 4. The latest Inside the Birds podcast drops Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays at 6 a.m. You can check it out with Adam Kaplan and Jeff Mosher right now. Andrew DiCecco from 97.3 ESPN.com covers the Eagles. Joins us here for Football at 4. And let's take a look at everything that's going on off-season draft-wise. Andrew, we want to dive into something with you that you're the perfect guy for Football at 4 today. I know how much you love the draft and how much you study the draft. So let's get into this. I don't know if you saw Bucky Brooks' most recent mock draft, but, man, I wanted to get your opinion on what kind of reaction there would be if the Eagles took a tight end with the 6th pick in the draft.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the Eagles could stand to trade down a little bit in the first round and still be able to get Kyle Pitts. But when you look at Nick Sirianni's offense, it's you're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets, I would assume. And Zach Ertz probably won't be here. So, I mean, you could certainly justify getting another elite tight end. And when you look at Kyle Pitts, the thing with him is he's not just a tight end. You can move him around. You can use Goddard Goddard's going to be the dominant blocker, but Pitts can be a wide receiver. You can move him in the slot. You can move him all over the place. He's a mismatched weapon, and he runs routes like a wide receiver. And in some cases, I would be inclined to say that he runs routes better than many of the prominent wide receivers in this draft. So, I mean, could they stand to go elsewhere? And yes, that would be a luxury pick in my opinion. But, I mean, he would certainly be the ultimate weapon that you can move around, and it would help any quarterback out, obviously.
Let me ask you this. If you're considering taking a wide receiver at that spot, would you then say, why not consider Pitts? If you're already thinking about taking an offensive player and it's a skill position player, why not? If you're going to take one of those wideouts, would you consider including him into that mix?
I mean, I think you have to, and then look no further than the Brian Johnson connection there at Florida, who has familiarity there. He's able to give a little bit of insight about what kind of a player he is, what kind of mismatches he can present for a team, how to best utilize them, and what he's going to be like in the locker room. I think that can't be discredited, and they could certainly go that route. I mean, they're going to use 2 tight ends. That's going to be if you look at what Nick Sirianni did with the Colts, that was, you look at Jack Doyle, you look at Mo Alley Cox, you look at Trey Burton. Those guys are all heavily implemented into their offense, big pieces of their offense. So when you get a guy like Kyle Pitts, he's such a rare athlete that, like I said, you can move him around, and and that's the way the NFL is really trending, to get these movable guys around to create mismatches, and he's going to be a really good one for a long time in the NFL.
Yeah, you make a great point saying that Sirianni's past implements the 12 personnel and the tight end. But I just wonder, based off of the situation at quarterback with Carson Wentz, if they do go after Pitts, do you think that it's a statement to Carson Wentz like, hey, we know you love the tight ends. We know it's your safety blanket. We're trying to fix you. Why not get you a piece that makes you feel more comfortable? Although, look, with the wide receiver, I guess it's a similar statement. But I do feel it's different with the tight end position.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're in that position. You're not necessarily thinking of the quarterback. You're thinking of getting the best player available that's going to help your team. And he's certainly a blue-chip player. Like I said, I've always been a proponent of fortifying the lines, whether it be the offensive or defensive line. If Panay Sewell's there, the offensive tackle from Oregon, I certainly think he deserves some consideration. Any of those, wide receiver, tight end, tackle, that's going to help any quarterback, regardless of whether it's Jalen Hurts, Carson Wentz, doesn't matter. But I do think that given the philosophy of the coaching staff, I think it'll be centered around an offensive player.
What about Pitts would be exciting if they were to get him. And to you, is he the clear top tight end in the class?
Yeah, it's not even close. He's the top tight end in the class. And what should excite fans if he was going to be the pick, Mike, would be the mismatches. And you're going to see that in the Super Bowl with Travis Kelce. Those are the type of things that Kyle Pitts can do for the Eagles. He's more explosive than Goddard, which is kind of amazing to say because Goddard's explosive in his own right, but he's got more of a vertical element to his game. He can make things happen after the catch. He can turn cornerbacks around with his route running. He's very polished and refined, and you don't really see that a lot of times with NFL tight ends. And like I said, you can't view Kyle Pitts as just a tight end. That's just a label. But when you look at his film and you can see the wide array of skill sets that he has, you have to be enamored with that.
Yeah, obviously this is all hypothetical due to the mock draft, but how much influence do you think someone like Brian Johnson would have on the selection if they do go down that road, considering he coached at Florida?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I think that would be his words would weigh a lot in the room because he's going to know what kind of guy is this in the locker room. What are his strengths? How can you best utilize him to the offense's advantage? What does he need to work on? What should we be harping on from day one with him? What weight do we want to see him play at? Because he's a little bit of a lighter tight end than the mold of a Trey Burton. These are all different, unique insights that Brian Johnson has that I certainly think will be a factor when the evaluation process is taking place and in that war room.
Now let me ask you, Andrew, do you like Pitts better than any of the three wide receivers?
To an extent I do, because I like the big-bodied option. I like the fact of having a guy that you can move around, that you don't just have to put in the slot or you don't just have to put on the outside. He just adds to the you get a guy like Jalen Reagor in space. You get Kyle Pitts and you move him around. You have Dallas Goedert. I think that these are the type of players that would really fit with a Nick Sirianni offense. Just from a versatility standpoint, I think it just makes the offense run that much more smooth. And if you want to get as many good players, obviously, as you can, not saying, obviously, that Devontae Smith and Jamar Chase aren't, but I think Kyle Pitts is a plug-and-play guy from day one. He's ready to go. He's polished. He's very refined from a route running standpoint. Can't say that with Jamar Chase at this stage of where he's at in the pre-draft process. So, if I had to go that route, if you're asking me between the three receivers and him, I would probably go Kyle Pitts. But ultimately, I would lean towards offensive line if it were me.
Yeah, I know a lot of the fans bring up Smith and Chase, but when it comes to that six pick, if it is Waddle available, like what do you see in him that would be intriguing or something that would maybe shy you away from someone like Waddle? And maybe it's the injury, but what do you think about that?
Well, the one thing that would kind of steer me away, and listen, Waddle is a very explosive, dynamic talent in his own right. I think that taking him at 6 would be a bit of a reach, to be honest with you. I do think that he's probably a top 12 talent, but I think that if they were to trade down and pick up another pick, he would still be there. The injuries scare you away a little bit. I think he's more of a complete receiver than some of the other two guys. But given the Eagles' history with injuries and things like that, I think that you have to go. You're going to be at least hesitant to go that route, especially at pick number 6. When I think that even Kyle Pitts, to be honest with you, at 6 to me would be a reach. I think he's a top 10 guy, no doubt. But I think there's a little bit more value with a player like Kyle Pitts for his versatility.
Yeah, Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 here, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Yeah, I like Pitts, and I agree that the intrigue is there. Like, that is something that would be intriguing to add, especially, well, obviously, if you let Ertz go. If you had Ertz, that pick would be out the window. But if what Pitt's skill set brings, that would be a message that we're trying to give, to me anyway, Andrew, see if you agree, we're trying to give a comfort zone to Carson Wentz. Like, the top receiver on the Eagles during the Wentz era has been the tight end every single year. It was either Ertz or Goddard. One year they were the top two. So that message to me is we are doing everything we can to make him comfortable.
Well, any little move that the Eagles make, it's going to be, everyone's going to scrutinize and say, was that move catered to Carson Wentz or was that more catered to Jalen Hurts? Adding a tight end to an offense, a top-level tight end, is going to help any quarterback. Quarterbacks tend to lean that way, especially when dealing with pressure. It's good to have that security blanket over the middle. Look at Donovan McNabb. Chad Lewis was one of his main targets. Quarterbacks all over. Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes always goes to Travis Kelce. It's just having a guy that can work the middle of the field, take advantage of linebackers and safeties that they don't have either the length or the athleticism to keep up with these guys. It's going to make a quarterback more comfortable. So, it doesn't matter. I think if they were to go with him, it still would be a reach to say, oh, this was more with this move was made with Carson Wentz in mind. I think that would help any quarterback.
Let's say they don't get a tight end. Let's say they don't go the route of Pitts. If they move on from Ertz as well, do you think Goddard and, I'm just hypothetically speaking, Rodgers again is a good enough duo? Because when Rodgers played last year, there were moments where he was getting 60 yards or so in a game, and he kind of rejuvenated himself a bit. Is that enough?
I don't necessarily know if it's going to be enough. Yes, he certainly showed that he can perform at a high level. I don't know if he can do that for a full slate of games. He has suffered a number of injuries over the past few seasons. There's going to be a guy who's a homegrown guy, Kenny Yeboah. He's from Allentown. He played at Temple. He transferred to Ole Miss. He was in the Senior Bowl. He's a guy that I really like. He's a guy that I'm going to be talking to early in the pre-draft process here. He's another guy that I think can be a 4th or 5th round player that can also create mismatches and things like that if you don't want to necessarily invest blue chip talent, a high draft capital pick on a tight end and that high. There's going to be other options there to get some of these guys. So I don't know that you can go into the season with just Richard Rodgers as the primary backup to Dallas Goedert, because both players have a lengthy injury history.
Yeah, and I know that one thing for sure is the wide receiver room is going to be kind of interesting. You talk about the tight ends, but for the first time for 2 straight years, Andrew, they're going to have the same wide receiver coach, a little bit of continuity there. And this is going to be a really interesting wide receiver room if they don't take a wide receiver at number 6. So, what they have left here, do they have to add to it, or is this young crew something that with Moorhead for the second year that you would be intrigued to bring back as is?
I think they need to add another big-bodied receiver because obviously J.J. Arcega-Whiteside has not really panned out, and you don't want to go into this season assuming that this is going to be the year that he turns the corner, because if you don't do that, then it becomes a house of cards, and you have a lot of guys that are playing out of position, and you're forcing a lot of guys to do things they're not necessarily accustomed to doing, much like you saw this year when they put all the eggs in the Deshaun Jackson and the J-Jaw basket. I think if they could add a big-bodied guy, I don't know that you need to invest a premium pick in a player like that. And I do think that they have some pieces there that it would be nice to see how Aaron Moorhead can build on what he's already worked with these guys on with a full offseason. Your Quez Watkins, who kind of resembles, who can have maybe somewhat of a T.Y. Hilton role in this offense, perhaps. You have Jalen Reagor, who's going to have another full offseason. John Hightower. You want to see what you have in these guys, and you want to let these guys develop instead of having to completely, sweep the room and get a new guys in there. And you really need to see what you have. And without having to completely overhaul it, I think you can stand to add yet another player. But let's see what you have there first. And given they're going to have a normal offseason, second year receiver coach for the first time in a long time, let's see what Aaron Moorhead can do and get the most out of these guys.
All right. Now, what did you think? Because they kept changing the receiver, how do you read into how the receiver coach has done, or they've been scapegoats?
Well, you can look. It's unique. Every situation is unique because with Greg Lewis, I thought, he was a little bit young, but he was able to go to a situation with the Chiefs where they had a little bit more talent there. But as Jeff outlined, the good players didn't regress, and the younger players, the backup players, they kind of saw their roles elevate, and they kind of elevated their play. And I think Greg Lewis could have been given another year, but But there's a guy like a Hunter Brewer who I don't believe I think that was solely on the coach. The guy who came in from UNC, Matt Collins, the wide receiver coach. Carson Walsh, it was evident that it was the coaching with him. It wasn't working out. Didn't have the command of the room. Mike Rowe was the best wide receiver coach that they had. But in the case of Aaron Moorhead, some people like change just for the sole purpose of change. You have to really look at beneath the surface. What was Aaron Moorhead kind of dealt with? The shortened offseason, a very young receiver room where the veteran players were injured for most of the season. A lot of this stuff was done virtually. He didn't have a lot of time with these guys, but towards the end of the season, you started to see some of the light come on for some of these guys, like a Quez Watkins, like a Jalen Reagor. And you kind of just want to build on that, because if you keep shuffling through coaches, that reflects very poorly on the front office, and it's not always on coaching. You can certainly point to that in some areas. Ken Flagel and Corey Unlin in the past, and there's many examples, but Aaron Moorhead's not one of them.
Speaking of coaches, now that we heard from Sirianni a couple more times, any new thoughts, any different feelings? I did stumble upon a clip of him speaking in the locker room to the Colts. That made me feel a little bit more comfortable. It felt like he was more comfortable in his natural habitat. But has anything changed in terms of how you feel about him?
Well, I've kind of always perceived him to be a high-energy guy, more so. I don't like to read into pressers too much. You like to see how the players respond and how training camps run, and you'd like to see the rotation of players and kind of just his offensive design and philosophy. That's really what I base it off of. And yesterday, what really struck me when he spoke on WIP, Nick Sirianni, he mentioned competition. That was something that he called a core value, something that he plans on harping on. But my question to you guys is, if you are going to move forward with Carson Wentz, you heard him mention competition at all positions. Given the stories that have come out about Carson Wentz's ego and entitlement and ability and his knack for undermining coaches, do you really think he's going to be all in on a quarterback competition in the summer?
I would imagine that's going to be a tough sell, right? I mean, don't you guys think
Absolutely.
That's a tough sell, that you're going to tell Carson Wentz, hey, you got to beat out, or that it's going to be an open and fair competition with Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I mean, and this is coming from a rookie head coach, a very young coaching staff. You're having that's his boss now. You're saying, hey, look, this is what it's going to be. Given the sensitive nature of Carson Wentz, I think that would be a tough sell for him. And, it's kind of hard for me to fathom him wanting to be like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. I'm ready to take on the challenge and see where it goes.
I think that would be a tough sell for sure. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. Competition is what Sirianni has brought up, a couple times. He brought it up with John Clark on NBC as well, NBC Sports Philly, when he talked about it. And he also acknowledged, guys, that he did not do a good job at the press conference. And he kind of made light of it. I don't know if you guys caught this, but he said, I need to go back and watch the tape. I'm going to have to go back and see but he kind of made light of the fact that he understood he did not do a good job. And I can appreciate that, right? I mean, that's something I can appreciate is, hey, I didn't nail that press conference, but next time I'll do better.
Yeah, I mean, self-reflection, being honest with yourself, being able to evaluate and know where you could improve as a coach or how you presented yourself. Self-awareness is a very it's an uncommon trait that you would think that a lot of people in a leadership role would have, but he definitely was able to evaluate where he went wrong and improve on that. He seemed a lot more comfortable on air. Of course, he's not in front of a room or in front of a bunch of people on a Zoom conference this time. But I mean, just like I always say with everything, let things play out. I'm never one to snap to a premature judgment on a certain topic or player or situation. Just let it play out. The guy has the tools. He was selected for a reason. Let's see what he can do this offseason and how things sort of shake out.
Football 4 with Andrew DiCecco. A lot of draft stuff, as we talked about. The mock draft that was just put out by NFL.com has the Eagles taking a tight end, which was kind of shocking. I was like, whoa, that's a little outside the box there. But, man, would that be intriguing there. At this point right now, we'll kind of keep checking in with you, Andrew, on this, is at this point, which way are you leaning with 6? Because, okay, Are you leaning with a player at 6, or are you more advantageous to moving out of that spot?
Well, that's a good question because it depends on how the board falls. I'm not one for reaching. If you really like Kyle Pitts, let's say, well, you can stand to drop down a few spots, pick up another pick, and get a Kyle Pitts, maybe even get a late first round pick, get a J.C. Horn, a cornerback from South Carolina. That's great value right there. But if you're sitting there and you see the Dolphins take a Devontae Smith and the Bengals maybe take a Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell falls to you at 6, I say you hang tight, grab that tackle, and let it work, let it play itself out, and you can figure out where you're going to put him because this is going to be an all-pro, a stalwart left tackle for your franchise, and those guys, when you have a chance to get them, you have to because they're not very common. So I know that you have Jordan Mailata. I understand you have Andre Dillard there, but if you have a chance to get someone like that into your locker room, into your building, and mold him with Jeff Stoutland nonetheless, you go ahead and do that.
So would you say you've given up on Andre Dillard?
Yes. I mean, I think, in my opinion, he was a little bit older when he was drafted. You have to have a certain mindset, a certain physical toughness. He hasn't really exhibited that. Certainly, to me, seemed like the coaches sort of were a little bit down on him. He may project as a guard for all we know, but being that left tackle, that blindside protector for your quarterback, I don't necessarily know that that's his makeup at the NFL level.
Do you think that teams around the league might look at him as a former first-round pick, and it's not like offensive line play is so stellar around the league where maybe there's a little bit of value there, or do you think that other teams are looking at him kind of the same way the Eagles might be?
It's interesting because I do think that there's going to be, it takes is one team out there to say, you know what, let this guy be our recreation project. The Eagles get, I don't know, a 4th-round pick they get a 4th-round pick for Andre Dillard. He hasn't really proven anything at this level, suffered from an injury. So I think there'll be a team that, if they do go that route, that might be able to kind of mold him into the player that many envisioned that he was going to be when he came out of Washington State. But I don't know if the Eagles are in any position right now to be able to afford to be able to give up offensive line depth, given how things have sort of transpired over the last couple of seasons.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, football at 4 at A DiCecco NFL. Don't forget, the NFL draft will be all over that. The Super Bowl, we'll get Andrew's thoughts on that game on Thursday when he's back with us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline for another edition of Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast here on the Sports Bash. All right, Andrew, take care, pal.
Yeah, man, be well, guys.
You do the same. And Andrew DiCecco, like all guys appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, he's brought to you by Dr. Lyle M. Back for everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery. Go to ilovelylback.com or call 856-MAKEOVER for Dr. Lyle M. Back. It is a proud sponsor of Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.